Hey there, hope you're doing well. If you're watching this podcast, I highly recommend that you watch the 8 podcasts. Yeah, there's a long number, 8 podcasts preceding this that relate to the API gateway. You don't have to watch all of them. Maybe you want to watch some of them to get a bit more context to this. In this video, what I want to talk about is a very specific issue, right? So let's say as part of our API gateway work, the work that we're doing, which is going to be live in the next 2 to 4 weeks, fingers crossed. One of the things we're doing is publishing our API spec on Readme, right? And Readme is one of, it's a great platform to publish your API documentation. You're going to have it in other places, but Readme is one of our, probably the first place we're going to ask our business users to go check out to get acquainted and acclimated with our APIs. So you can check out Readme, but anyway, so the way it works is you create your OpenAPI specification, and then you can upload that onto Readme. They support that you can either hit upload and do it via the UI, or they have an NPM plugin that you can install and then do it through that. So you just need the API key and you have the version number and you associate with that. I don't know the second version going forward, how that is supported on their web interface. I'm pretty sure it's very similar. But since the first time we've uploaded it there during the course of our dev process, we've generally used the command line to publish newer versions, right? So they have the NPM module, then you give it the version number. Let's say the first version is v1.0 is their default. I don't know how their minor versions work, but let's say it's v1.0.0. You can update that. And you want to publish the next version. From what I've seen so far, you cannot do it from the command line and specify this new version number because it complains that the version doesn't yet exist. So that tells me that they expect you to go to the web UI, the interface, and create the new version. And then you publish this spec, the current one, as that new version that you just created as. So you kind of create an empty new version, sort of a scaffold area, and then you publish your spec that populates it into that version. Now, to get to the core of what this video is about, you have all of your API definitions, request bodies, descriptions, and responses, and yada yada yada. A lot of it in the OpenAPI specification, because you cannot upload a OpenAPI spec to Readme and make any changes that are part of the spec in itself, right? They don't support that. They expect you to have made that in the spec and then upload it. However, whatever the means of upload happens to be, that's agnostic to the core item that I'm referring to here. So what that means is you need to make sure you're pretty happy with the way your spec looks, and then you upload that spec. But then they provide more ways to document your endpoints on top of what you would have done through the OpenAPI specification, right? So let's say my endpoint says get all treadmills, right? I say it's a get request, it's slash whatever snowpal.com/treadmills. We return a bunch of treadmills that are available to you. So that's a simple example, right? But now if you want to document the response, and in this case there's no param necessarily, but let's say you want to get a particular treadmill, like the Nordic treadmill. You then do a /treadmill/I:/ID, and that ID is a path param, right? In other cases, you might have query string params, and then you may have request bodies for like put, patch, or post request. In any case, you're going to document all of them. It looks good and you upload it. You cannot make any more changes to it via their platform, right? So you need to do it in the spec. Sure. So you figure out, nothing to figure out. You do it. It's a little bit inconvenient. I wish they supported it, but they don't, right? And I can just speculate as to why they may or may not support it. You upload the spec. After that, you want to make additional modifications, enhancements to supplement what your current documentation is. Maybe you want to add some screenshots, maybe you want to add some code snippets and whatnot, right? All of that needs to happen on the Readme platform. That's their value add that they bring to the table. Now, the tricky part here is, I don't know how much light is here, but hopefully you can still see me. But let's say I added a rich description there. Added some screenshots, code snippets, and a bunch of other things. What happens if you publish a new version of this spec? I was like wondering, what's going to happen to what I did after I published the spec or uploaded the spec to the Readme platform, and then I added more documentation around those endpoints. We were hoping, that it would preserve it, and it actually does, thankfully. But there's some nuances there, right? How does it preserve it? Again, I'm going to speculate how the implementation might be. I have no idea, but I can take a reasonably calculated guess at that. But the thing I want you to note is if you did some rich documentation and then you published the spec, but you change, let's say it's /treadmill/:id, and I took a lot of pain to added some photos, some code snippets, some recipes and examples and whatnot. And now I decided I'm not going to call it /treadmill/:id for whatever reason. I'm going to call it, the path is going to be /treadmills/Nordic/ID, because I'm going to now kind of categorize the treadmills by their brand, by the make, by the models or the company that makes them. And I want to, sort of have an ID following that. Completely concocted, on the go, on the fly example. So take it with a grain of salt. But if I were to want to do that in my next version, sure. From an API support standpoint, we need to make it backward compatible and all of that stuff. But ignoring that, it's not relevant to this particular problem. Let's say we make that change and then we publish it. You know what will happen? The description and everything else that you added, the screenshots and the code snippets that were associated with this endpoint in the previous version, they would just disappear. And if you did not create the second version and then publish this new spec as a second version, you would have almost lost everything that you did, which seems pretty scary to me. We just spent an hour or so trying to figure this out. So if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself in the subsequent videos. But from what we've seen so far, there's nothing that tells me that we may have gotten this, this wrong at this point. So, which means you either maintain the URLs, the path to your endpoints, in which case, thankfully, it maintains the content and the description you added on Readme. But if you change the URL, you're toast, right? Now, you may not have to change those, and you probably won't do it all the time, understood. But the fact that this happens is a little bit scary, and I don't know, I've been, the kind of people, we read through tons of documentation before we check something out. So I don't know if they've documented this. Maybe they have. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and believe that it is. But it didn't stand out to me. It didn't, like, it's not something, even the reading we've done, in the playing we've done so far, nothing told us that this would have happened. So we had a requirement, we tried to satisfy that, and we asked ourselves some questions, and this was one of them, and the answer to the question was something we figured out ourselves. And I want to share that in case, hoping that it benefits you if you're in the business of creating or publishing APIs now or in future. Just keep that in mind. So either stick to the same endpoints, or if you need to change the endpoints, make sure you publish that as a new version, which you might still do regardless, but there's nothing that stops you from overwriting the existing version. You're welcome to do that from a command line standpoint. So just be cognizant of that. And if you end up publishing a new version and you lose, because the endpoint URL changed, you lost what you had written down earlier, you just have to go back to the previous version and then copy paste and just mimic whatever you had in the previously. So just something to note. It's very specific, but it's a reasonable enough problem that a lot of us would stumble into as we start publishing more APIs, more versions and whatnot, right? And if I find something that's in their command line, something that sort of warns us about these types of things, I will share it in my subsequent videos. And hopefully this helps you if you're in the business of doing something similar to what we are actually working on right now. That's basically it for this video. And I just realized that I forgot to just use my headphones, and the lighting is not great. So the production quality, I don't know, but hopefully the quality of what I've shared in terms of the problem and the solution that we've actually been able to arrive at is something that is valuable to you. Thanks a lot. And remember to sign up on snowball.com, check out our mobile apps, and then very soon you can build your business on our API platform. Thanks. Bye-bye.